I met the love of my life while I was engaged, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I don't even know why I'm posting this. Maybe it's the weight of it all. Maybe I just need someone, anyone, to hear my story and tell me I wasn't a complete monster. Or maybe I am. God, I don't even know anymore. This might be long. No, it will be long. But if you've ever believed in love, loss, and the cruel timing of life, maybe you'll understand why I'm still haunted by a woman named Lyra. I met Mia when I was 22. She was kind, beautiful in a girl-next-door kind of way, with soft hazel eyes and a laugh that made people look. We started dating during our last year of college, and it was easy, comfortable, like slipping into a favorite hoodie on a rainy day. I proposed when I was 25. Everyone was happy. My parents adored her. My friends called us couple goals, and Mia, she cried and said yes. I thought I had everything I ever wanted, until I met Lyra. It was at a company workshop in Cebu. I had just joined this new tech firm, and they were sending a bunch of us to a week-long leadership seminar. It was one of those retreats with icebreakers, bonfire nights, and forced team-building exercises. On the first day, I noticed her. Long black hair, sharp almond-shaped eyes, the kind of smile that wasn't just beautiful, it was dangerous. You know that type of person who walks into a room and everyone feels it, even if they don't look? That was Lyra. She wasn't like Mia. Where Mia was gentle, Lyra was fire. She was witty, sarcastic, unapologetically herself. She called me out on my bullshit during a debate over some random corporate ethics scenario. Everyone else laughed awkwardly. I was half offended, half intrigued. I knew I shouldn't be curious, but God, I was. Over the next few days, we kept ending up next to each other, paired in team games, assigned the same breakout group, accidentally bumping into each other at the bar. We talked about everything. Music, books, heartbreaks. She told me about her father's sudden death when she was 19, how it broke her mom, how she was forced to grow up too fast. I told her about my safe, boring life. She laughed and said, "Maybe you need a little chaos." There was this one night, the last night of the retreat. Everyone was drunk around the bonfire. Someone played old Eraserhead songs on a guitar. Lyra sat beside me, our shoulders barely touching. I remember looking at her, and in that moment something inside me cracked open. And I knew I was screwed. We didn't kiss. I need to make that clear. But something about that night changed us. There was this electricity between us, the kind of unspoken thing you only see in movies. After the retreat, we kept in touch. Texts at first. Memes, stupid jokes, complaints about work. Then it became late-night calls. Hours of talking about life and dreams we never told anyone else. I knew it was wrong. I was engaged. Mia was already planning the wedding. But with Lyra, I felt alive. I told myself I could control it, that it was harmless, that I was just talking to a friend. Until one rainy night, after a rough day at work, I drove to her condo without thinking. We didn't sleep together, but we might as well have. We sat on her couch, drank cheap red wine, and watched some terrible Netflix show. I don't even remember what it was. What I remember is the way she looked at me and how my heart felt like it was being torn in two. "I can't do this," I told her. "I know," she whispered. But neither of us moved. I don't know who leaned in first, but our foreheads touched, and for a full minute, we just stayed like that, breathing each other in. No words, no excuses. Then she pulled away. "Go home, Sam," she said, her voice breaking. And I did. The next day, I told Mia everything. Not about the night at Lyra's, but about the feelings, about how confused I was, about how I didn't know if I was ready to get married. She screamed, cried, called me every name in the book. And she was right to. We called off the engagement. My parents were furious. Friends took sides. Some called me a coward. Others said I did the right thing by being honest. And Lyra, I went to see her. I thought maybe after all this wreckage we could be together. That maybe the universe was just waiting for me to make a choice. But when I got to her door, she didn't even let me in. "You broke something in me, Sam," she said. "I loved you, and you made me a villain in a story I never asked to be part of." She closed the door, and that was it. It's been 3 years. Mia's engaged now. I saw it on Facebook. Lyra moved to Singapore for a job. Deleted all her social media. I haven't heard from her since. I'm 26, alone, haunted. I replay that night on her couch over and over, wondering what would have happened if I had walked away sooner, if I had been stronger or braver. I still love her, and I'll never get to tell her. And then last night, fate did what fate does best. It played another cruel trick on me. I was at a bar in Makati with some old college friends. Nothing special. I didn't even want to be there. I've become the ghost at parties, the guy who smiles, but whose eyes give him away. We were sitting at a high table near the window when someone walked in and the air left my lungs. It was Lyra. Hair a little shorter now, dyed a soft auburn. Same sharp eyes, same dangerous smile. She hadn't aged a day. Or maybe she had, but in that beautiful, weary way people do when they've survived something that should have broken them. She was with a guy. Tall, clean-cut. The type of man you bring home to your mother. I froze. She didn't see me at first. Or maybe she did and chose not to react. But when our eyes finally met across the room, just for a second, it was like every sound in that bar died. I swear to God, I felt my heart physically ache. What I did, I should have left. But you know me by now. I don't do the smart thing. After a couple of drinks, and by a couple I mean 4, I walked over. My friends tried to stop me, but it was already done. She saw me coming. I didn't even think about what I was going to say. I just stood there. "Hi," I croaked. She looked at me like I was a ghost. Her date excused himself, probably sensing the storm. Lyra sipped her drink, then said, "Didn't expect to see you here, Sam." God, her voice. It was like hearing an old favorite song you'd convinced yourself you forgot. I asked how she was. She said fine. Asked about Singapore. She said she came back a few months ago, work transfer. I told her she looked good. She laughed. Not kindly, not cruelly. Just tired. Then she asked, "What do you want, Sam?" I didn't have an answer. Because, truthfully, I wanted 100 impossible things. I wanted to tell her I still loved her, that I never stopped, that every woman since her has been a cheap imitation, that I dream of that night on her couch more than I should. But I also knew I had no right. So I just said, "I miss you." Her eyes softened, just for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "You don't get to miss me," she whispered. "You don't get to walk back into my life like nothing happened." I nodded. "I know." And then, because I'm a fool, I asked her if she was happy. Her answer gutted me. I was. She stood up, grabbed her bag, and brushed past me. But just before she walked out, she stopped and looked back. "You were the great tragedy of my life, Sam," she said. "But I survived you." And then she was gone. Now, I don't know why I'm posting this. Maybe because there's nowhere else to put this kind of grief. I went home that night and stared at my ceiling until the sun came up. Thought about calling her, sending a message, leaving a voicemail. But what would be the point? She's right. I don't get to miss her. And yet I do. Every single day. It's been about 6 months since I last saw Lyra. I lived in limbo for a while, haunted by what I lost, chasing ghosts in familiar places, half hoping I'd bump into her again. But life doesn't always work like in movies. It waited until I was finally trying to move on. And then it hit me where it hurt most. I'd been seeing someone new, a girl named Elle. Sweet, kind, the type of woman you write songs about when you finally realize you're not the main character in every tragedy. We weren't serious. She knew about my past. I told her one night after too many drinks and a really bad John Mayer cover at some open mic bar. She didn't judge, just said, "People break. It's what we do after that matters." I thought maybe, just maybe, I could finally stop bleeding. Until the message came. It was a Thursday. I remember because I was at a cafe waiting for Ella and my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey, it's Lyra. I need to see you." I felt my chest cave in. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I stared at the screen for a good 10 minutes before Elle arrived. I told her I wasn't feeling well and left. Drove around the city for hours, ended up at the old park. Lyra and I used to talk about visiting, but never did. It was raining, of course it was, because fate loves its cliches. At midnight, I texted back. "Where?" She replied instantly. "St. Benedict's Chapel, tomorrow, 5 p.m. I showed up. Of course I did. She was already there, sitting at the back pew, simple white dress, no makeup, hair loose around her shoulders. I sat beside her. We didn't say anything for a while. Then she spoke. "I'm getting married." I felt like someone reached into my ribcage and pulled my heart out. "To the guy from the bar?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded. I wanted to scream, cry, beg. But I didn't. I just sat there. And then she handed me a letter. "I wrote this 2 years ago," she said. "But I wasn't brave enough to send it. You don't have to read it. I needed to give it to you before I start my life." I took it, and she smiled. Not the way she used to. Not the way that made me believe I could survive anything. But a soft, sad smile. The kind you give a gravestone before walking away. "I forgave you a long time ago, Sam," she whispered. "But I can't carry you with me anymore." And then she left. I watched her walk out of the chapel, sunlight catching the edges of her hair. And just like that, it was over. I opened it an hour later in my car. It wasn't long. "Dear Sam, you once told me you weren't a poet, that you didn't believe in forever, that people like us weren't meant for happy ending. But I loved you anyway, even when it hurt, even when you made me feel like a villain in your love story, even when I hated myself for it. I would have fought for you. I would have burned the world for you. But you never asked me to. And so I hope one day you find the kind of love that makes you choose, makes you brave. Because I did. And it wasn't you. Goodbye, Sam." Lyra. I read it about 100 times, and then I finally cried. I didn't text her, didn't call, didn't crash her wedding. I kept the letter in a drawer I don't open anymore. Ella and I didn't last. I wasn't ready. I'm 27 now, a little quieter, a little lonelier, maybe a little wiser. Some nights, when the city's asleep, I still think about her, about what we almost were, about what I destroyed. But life moves on, and sometimes so must we. Lyra's getting married. Gave me a letter she wrote years ago. Told me she forgave me but wouldn't carry me anymore. It broke me, but it also set me free.